everyone, it's Jess from MHYT. The temperatures are starting to get a bit cooler in the morning. I had to actually put my hoodie on today. That only means one thing: fall is right around the corner. So I'm going to get out my flock care list for the fall. And this means doing any coop maintenance or expansion that I need to do. I'd much rather be doing that now than when it's snowing outside. I'm going to make sure I have all my supplies together I need for the fall and the winter, make sure my coop is set up for the deep litter method, just all the things I need to do to make sure my coop is really good and my flock is going to be nice and safe during the colder months. Another thing is, when the temperatures start to do this and fall's right around the corner, it's time for me to receive my chicks. I started raising my chicks in the fall a couple years ago and I absolutely love it. So there are a few things that I do that are slightly different from raising my chicks in the springtime, but really it's very similar. The first thing I do is I look at my calendar and I calculate when our first frost is. So we typically have our first frost around the beginning of November. So I usually receive my chicks and start raising them in the beginning of September. I like to choose breeds that are cold hardy here for Northeast Ohio. So I like to choose like our Orpingtons and Barred Rocks, breeds like that. Although I've raised many Bantams in the fall and they've done great over the winter and really wonderful the following springtime. The reason I like to raise my chicks in the fall versus the spring is by springtime, my chicks are going to be at laying age. If you raise your chicks in the spring, depending on the breed, they may not lay until late summer, and if it's a really slow maturing breed, you may not get eggs till the following springtime. So raising my chicks in the fall, they're going to do all their growing and all that kind of good stuff during the wintertime, and by spring, they're ready to lay eggs. Another thing that I do is I carefully choose where I'm going to be brooding my chicks. I always brood my chicks indoors in a room that is room temperature, but I like to make sure, because we have these fluctuating temperatures now, that my brooder is going to be somewhere that it's going to have that consistent, really good temperature. I use a brooder plate, so it's really important for me to have a room that is at room temperature. So I actually brood in this porch right here. I know that my chicks are going to be safe, they're going to be free from any drafts or anything like that. Another thing that I do is I make sure to have a grow out area kind of built inside my chicken coop when I am raising my chicks in the fall, so I can make the acclimation go a little bit smoother. So I will allow my chicks to become fully feathered at 6 to 8 weeks, and then I'm going to slowly acclimate them to being outside. Once they're fully feathered, they do really well in those cold temperatures, but I want them to slowly get used to it. So I'll take them out for an hour at a time for a few days, and then 2 hours, and then 6 hours, until they fully have been outside. I like having that grow out pen inside my coop because while the chicks are acclimating, they're learning the chickens that are already in the coop, but nobody can kind of get to each other while they're still getting to know each other. By the time I'm done acclimating my chicks, they have gotten so used to the other chickens in the coop, there's no issues when I incorporate my coop together. I also like to keep bigger breeds in my coop, so I keep breeds like the light Brahmas in my coop because they kind of act like heaters. They just are a really awesome size. They're good, gentle birds. They never really go after any of my new chicks. And my birds, when they're at that 8 to 12 week mark, they go cuddle up with the light Brahma, and that just helps to keep them extra warm. Another thing that I'll do is I'll add a heat mat that looks like this right here. And I'll put that up against the wall of the coop. And if the chicks feel as though they're a little bit cold, they'll go and lean against that. I'll tell you though, I have used it for 3 years now. I had one chick that used it and then my Silkie started using it. The chicks were totally fine being acclimated out into the temperatures outside during November, and they didn't have any issues at all. Another thing that I do is I'll add places in the coop for the chicks to go and kind of come together and kind of get used to the coop and hide from the big girls for a little bit. So I'll turn like kitty litter boxes on the side or a 5-gallon bucket on the side, and the chicks kind of use that as their area to go hide and rest while they're getting used to the new coop and the new setup that they are in. And I just find that this is super helpful. When the chicks are done using those areas, usually my chickens find their way into those areas and they use them as a place to lay eggs. Hopefully I've given you some tips for raising chicks in the fall. If you have any questions, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Well, I think I better get outside and finish my fall prep checklist. Thank you so much for watching.